Alrighty, so this is Anjovi, gonna make a tutorial video, or at least an approximation of one, regarding how to get Koala sampler hooked up with AUM, hooked up with Flytape or something of that matter, and yeah, two controllers, these two particularly. So firstly, what you're gonna be kind of looking for is how the hell to put it into the iPad. That is solved by this fella here. So you have a, let me see, it's a camera kit, an unofficial one that you can get on Amazon for like 10 bucks or 15 Canadian. Yeah, you get a multi-port. You check this boy out. Look at it. You know, it was like 3 or 4 slots. And I got a Nano control, I got an MPD, as well as this fellow down here. Let me see if I Yeah, see that guy on the left there? He's kind of, that's a preamp, and that's gonna be hooked up into this guy back here. You know, this guy here. And it goes out of this headphone jack, turns into an RC, and goes right there. And that's kind of like a microphone, so when you start playing stuff out of there, it's gonna act like almost like a SP404 or something, but anyways, that's kind of the setup. So I like to record shit when I go onto YouTube and just play it out, and yeah, just record stuff live. I don't know, I just kind of like how I like to do it, despite the quality not always being the best. But how do you get these controllers hooked up with effects and stuff so you can do it all? You know, you can do all funky performance effects. And what you do, I'm going to see if I can set this up right now, is I have a look at this screen here, and what you're looking at is the little app that comes with the Nano control. So what you'll do is you'll kind of go on the internet, you'll look up Nano control driver, and then what you'll ultimately get is this guy here. So what this does is it gives you like a map out of everything. And yeah, essentially you just have to fiddle around with this thing until you get something you like. See, I like to use all of these buttons for like pads, because they kind of line up to give you 16 pads to mess around with. Meanwhile, I'll use the top row here to kind of as buttons for effects for Flytape. So like if I want to use the stutter or the the reverse, the little distortion effects, I could put it up here, and I could set the dial to yeah, just to set that up. Essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be kind of looking at like, so I don't know, so you have control change. I guess that's you can have control change or a note. You're going to be essentially changing everything to notes, because that's what MIDI keys are, and that's what all of whenever you go into a software, that's all it's going to come up as. I'll give you an idea of what it kind of looks like for my setup. So here you'll see that I have notes going here. And this one might actually be a bit messed up, to be honest, because yeah, like you'll see, like in this case, these should be notes down here as opposed to up here. I don't know, for some reason I messed this up. So yeah, I mean, otherwise you have control. So the notes are like when you hit a button and it plays a note, you hold it, it holds a note. A control is something you kind of just toggle off and on. At least that's how I've come to understand it. So like, if you want the play button to be control, because you don't want to have to hold the button down. Or yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's the thing too. You can also cheat any button as a note. Like, say if you wanted your buttons to not toggle, like if you wanted to trigger an effect and you wanted to just do it for however long you want to hold it for, you just make it a note. But where things get interesting is that the MPD, let me switch back here, if that works. The MPD has notes that overlap with this. So like if you notice there's like G sharp, A sharp, blah blah blah, all the notes of a piano. Um, if you went in, there's probably a software for this too. I didn't bother with it personally. What I did was I went into Koala sampler and I looked at what notes were like popping up as my MPD notes. So I kind of set everything I wanted my MPD to do first. And following that, then I kind of went into like the Nano control thing, and I'm like, okay, I kind of wrote down like what notes were what, and let me see if I could give you an example of how I did that. So, I go into the MIDI. I'm gonna map the MIDI. You see how if you're opening this up, precursor, you're probably gonna want to watch all of the other tutorials first. This is just like my particular setup. Like, of course, you're not gonna see it, but all these little white boxes are gonna say stuff like C2, C2 sharp, D2, D2 sharp, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's how I mapped all my MPD stuff first, made it nice. I knew exactly which buttons to avoid when creating the other thing. For instance, let's say if I program this note here, you see how it says F4? You can change that to F4 sharp, G4 sharp, blah blah blah. And yeah, essentially you just put it, I put these a few octaves up so they don't, I made damn sure they're not going to overlap. Because I think all the MPD stuff is like C2. It's like lower down on the piano. And it's the same thing with the control stuff, really. Because you'll see here like the CC number is 4 and 5 and blah blah blah. If you look in on the MPD where the knobs are, or on the Koala sampler where you set the knobs, they're going to be the exact, follow the exact same thing. So if like you don't do any of this beforehand, you'll end up setting up your MPD and then you'll try to put in like the knobs and sliders of the Nano and you're like, oh, what the fuck, they're both the same thing. And you'll figure this out like after you set everything up and are happy with yourself, and you're going to be playing around with it, and like you're gonna, oh no, I don't have the stutter, I'm just filtering it instead, and like vice versa. So anyway, so that's like the first part, is just setting this stuff up, like so the buttons are all different. The next thing is gonna be how to get it mapped with Flytape and AUM and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get out of here, and what this would look like, usually what I do is I always start up Koala sampler first, then I go into AUM. I don't know why, this is just the way it works for me. If I do it the other way, it doesn't really, something always messes up. So I open Koala sampler, get everything ready, then I open AUM. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put Koala sampler in here again. Again, precursor, you should probably know how this stuff generally works before coming to this video. Anyway, so I put Koala on top, and then I'll add Flytape, for instance. I got a few other things I like to use. Let me see. Yeah, I do like Rough Rider. So with Rough Rider, let me see. I'll just do that as an example of what this would look like all together. Nope. Come on. There you go. Tap around there until something happens. I'm going to open up Flytape 2. Honestly, I use Flytape 2 and Flytape 1 at the same time just because I like some of the stuff from the latter and some of the former. So the thing with AUM is that it kind of acts like an override as far as I can tell. And the way I set everything up, like I have everything mapped in Koala that I want, but for Flytape, I map that inside of AUM. So what happens here is you kind of see like there's this GUI and whatever for AUM. It's a little different than like Koala. And you'll have access to all of the stuff that's in Flytape, except you're going to be programming it from AUM. So you're telling AUM to tell Flytape to do this when I push a button. kind of, that's as far as I haven't been able to get it to work another way. So just if you ran into that wall trying that, you know, I know I did too. So let's say I have speed here. I can go in here, and this is all AUM still, and I tell it to learn. So if I want to trigger the speed effect, you know, I'll push a button. Let me see. Oh, okay, so this is the dial. So I'm gonna, no, what a bastard. Okay, let me try something else here. Son of a gun. Oh, okay, so it did learn it. You see here, you'll see channel 3 and blah blah blah, CC0. I don't know, maybe. What a bastard. That's giving me a hard time. But anyways, the gist of it, there's probably something going on with my MIDI stuff. So essentially, this is all you're going to be doing though. You're going to be programming everything in it. You're going to have all your effects. You're going to have to like set a button like this to like tell it to push the button that occurs here. And you're going to set a dial to control this. You know, there's like the little parameters or whatever for each of these things. You know, and then as you play it, you know, you'll be, you know, if I want it to break slow, I'll slide it around, and then, or I'll go up here and I'll go, you know, just like essentially what it's doing. And after I do all of this shit, what I'm gonna do so I don't have to do this over and over again is I'm gonna save it as a session. And you'll do that in AUM. So you're gonna have like this session file you're gonna make in AUM, and you're gonna save it like this. I'm not gonna save it. I'm not even gonna risk saving it because I don't want to risk overwriting the thing that I spent time putting together. So what I'll do instead is I'll show you what it kind of looks like when I open it up. So let's pretend I just opened AUM after opening Koala. I'll go here and I save my thing as session, and you'll notice it has like everything, so I don't have to put all of this in every time. And let me see if I can mess around here. Yeah, this is a wonderful feature of the MIDI controllers too, is you'll hear this buzzing whenever you play something. Oh, okay, so what's going on? Whenever I set my preamp up, I always have to do this, so. Yeah, that'll be kind of what it looks like altogether. So yeah, first thing you do, you make sure all your buttons don't overlap with the MIDI notes, and you set the control buttons that you want. Second step, go into Koala, map everything out. Or actually, you map everything out with Koala on this thing first. Yeah, step 2, you go into the Nano control thing, make sure these things don't overlap. Step 3, you open up AUM, load in all of the things like Flytape and all that stuff, and configure them through AUM. So don't do it on like the respective softwares, I don't know. But do it together and then save a session file in AUM. That's my method. Peace.